you were born, you knew that you had cystic fibrosis your whole life? You were born with
so it's
it,
really,
or how did you find out?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because I was born in the early 80s. And in the early 80s, doctors didn't know quite as much about a lot of diseases as they do now. So when I was born, they weren't pre-screening newborns for certain diseases, one of which was cystic fibrosis. So unless there was an immediate need to treat an infant, they weren't testing for cystic fibrosis. So I was born, I was healthy, I was normal weight and size, so they never thought anything about it. And no one in my family had ever had cystic fibrosis. It's actually an incredibly rare disease. Only 70,000 people currently in the world have it. So it's not something that's very common.
How do people get it?
Yeah, so it's actually a double recessive disease. So if you know genetics or biology, it's you have one mutated chromosome from your mother's side and one from your father's side. And as each of those are passed down, you'd have to have the one that was mutated from one and one from the other. So even if both parents are carriers, then there's only like there is a 25% chance of actually getting it, even with your parents being carriers. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's funny because it's one of those diseases in med school. And if you talk to any doctors, they're like, oh, cystic fibrosis. It's like the first thing we learn in med school because it is so perfectly aligned with like the way the chromosome sequencing and biology works that it's the perfect training and teaching disease just because of the genetics of it. So
what were some of the conditions, and any effects that when you were growing up with because of it?
Yeah. So like I said, I didn't know I had it. And I actually ended up getting diagnosed at 18 years old. So,
you didn't know your whole life until you were 18 that you had it?
It's crazy. I know. It's crazy. So I ended up I played sports growing up. I played baseball, basketball, I swam and did some other stuff. And I ended up, they kind of diagnosed me with like athletic induced asthma because I would cough a little bit. Like I'd be playing basketball and I'd have like a coughing fit, and it wasn't a big deal. It didn't mean I couldn't play. It just meant that for whatever reason, my endurance wasn't fantastic. And, I wasn't like a star basketball player, but I played. And so for the longest time, they gave me an inhaler. They're like, here, puff on this, you'll be fine. And you'll appreciate this when I know, right? So I graduated high school, and when I was a senior in high school, I was 6'3", 153 pounds. I was a rail to the point where I'm playing basketball. If I went up for a rebound playing basketball and there was a draft in the building, like it would move me, it's funny. Right. Everyone was like, how are you so skinny? And all my like girlfriends would be like, I wish I could have cystic fibrosis. You stay so thin. And it's like the last thing you want to hear as a male.
We gotta back up here. Yeah. We gotta find out when you found out, what happened there?
Yeah. So when I was 18 years old, I was actually going to play baseball in college. I got an offer to play Division III baseball in college, and I needed to go in for a physical. And I went in to get my college physical, and I had a new doctor because my pediatrician at the time retired. And, I go, and like I said, these new doctors, it's like one of the things I learned about in med school is cystic fibrosis. And she looked at my chart and she said, something sticks out to me. This looks like something I learned about in med school. I'd love to send you in for a test. And, here I am, 18 years old, kind of thinking, I'm on top of the world right now. I'm going to play college baseball. I'm healthy for the most part. I've got this little asthma kind of deal. And I go in for a test to the hospital, and she said, okay, well, I'm going to call you with the results. And I'm sitting at my counter in my kitchen where I grew up, and I get the phone call, and the doctor, she says, Ryan, are you sitting down? I said, yeah. And she said, well, we got the results of your test, and you tested positive for cystic fibrosis. And at this point, I kind of researched it only because we had talked about what it could be. But, this is before the age of the internet, really. So it's whatever kind of research you could possibly do, early AOL days. And I understood through my research that it was a pretty bad disease to have. And I said, okay, well, what's this mean for my, prognosis? And she was like, Ryan, the average lifespan for someone with cystic fibrosis is 30 years old. And at that point, I'm 18 years old. And I'm thinking, holy cow, am I halfway through my life? Over halfway through my life? This is insane. And, being 18 and naive, it scared me, but I also was like, I don't believe that's true. For me, I feel okay. I think you're wrong about this, and I don't want to question your medical degree, but I'm not going to allow that to happen.